Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Saturday to you from everyone here at the IRC. And that would be myself, Tina Barak, Bob Schmidt, and Erica Holscher, who are going to be flying this plane this afternoon. So glad that you've taken the time on this Mother's Day weekend to join us for a conversation with visual artist, set designer, Anna Corrali. And we'll get Anna to the table in just a couple of seconds. But for all of those of you coming in on Facebook from both here in Philadelphia and around the country, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, to meet the interesting voices in the performing arts and the creative arts in Philadelphia and around the world. We've enjoyed being here with you since June, and we'll continue to be here Saturdays at 5. So thanks so much. And put your questions in the chat if you have them, or on Facebook Live for Anna, and we will work them into the conversation as we move ahead in the show today. And if you're over on YouTube, checking out past episodes, we encourage you to subscribe there, and also check out our podcast, Into the Absurd with Tina Brock, on any of your podcast platforms. I first got to know Anna Corrali's work through her set design for the Pig Iron Theater Company here in Philadelphia, CHEKHOV Lizardbrain, and Pay Up, Isabella, a number of shows that she had designed for them. And she then began to work with the IRC and Franz Kafka's The Castle. She designed Charles Mee's Paradise Park and also George Bernard Shaw's MISALLIANCE. She does an extraordinary amount of work up in New York, where she's located, with Taylor Mack and the Talking Band and many other companies in New York. And I'm sitting in front of a set design that she did for a show back in 2018 that we'll talk about when she's here, which I think it would be just the best time to get Anna Corrali to the table to talk to her about her body of work. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, Tina. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to jump into. It seems like we can start to think about life in a world, getting ready to be back out on the stage, and the ways in which, as you and I were talking about before the show, the ways in which this virtual medium that we live in now might be informing the productions we're creating, what they might look like, and the ways in which visual artists and designers like yourself will be paving the way to what these new productions will look like. So I'm very excited to talk to you. I feel like I can talk to you and be excited about the possibilities, whereas maybe 9 months ago, it was hard to talk about, So I wanted to start, and I selected this particular production photo of yours from a 2018 production called Time's Journey Through a Room that Dan Rothenberg directed, and Dan is the artistic director of Pig Iron Theater Company here in Philadelphia. This is a production you did up in New York, but I selected it both for its austerity and just visual. It's just visually arresting to me, and also the subject matter of the show. I think I want to make sure, and we will, Bob will put it in the chat for everybody to check out your website, because it's just extraordinary. The catalog of, and so many images, but I liked this one specifically for its content of the show, and it just felt very right. And I wondered if you could tell me, in your design of this particular show, where you began in your thinking through how to bring this story to life, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the story itself.
Oh yes, it's really, I mean, I don't have a favorite production, because I think each one is really unique, and I can explore so many new things, and that's what's really exciting about set design, that you are always given an opportunity to build something, to explore. It's almost like a laboratory, But this production was, I just felt that the flow of the production was so amazing. Though, of course, working with Dan, as always, when we worked with the Pig Iron Theater, it's a long process. And of course, I don't even remember where it started or how it started. The story itself is a beautiful story by Toshiki Okada. I would say it's a ghost story, a Japanese ghost story. It's basically about a couple where the wife dies suddenly, and as the husband explores a way into a new relationship, she actually, the wife lingers around as a ghost, and just walks around the space and is there in his life. So that's something that stayed there behind, after her, with him. And now he has to see if he can basically bid farewell to the ghost, to the, to this lingering image, basically. And I thought it was very much up my alley. It's very subtle, beautiful, a lot of suggestions instead of, just putting it sharp on black and white. So, I was experimenting with a lot of, juxtaposition of opacity and transparency or translucency. We used a projection screen that were never got any projections. It was just basically for luminosity, for transparency, for lights, for different lights, how light travels through a room. And to me, in my drawings, I always examined how light travels through a space, and it's very geometric, and how I can capture it. And of course, one of my favorite artists is James Terrell, whose entire medium is basically based on just lights and just creating spaces or creating experiences with immersing viewers in different qualities of lights, different colors of lights. And so we set out to create something that was very ghost-like, very fragile, but also a room, just a regular room. Now, we examine it from all these perspectives. What it is, do we need, 3, well, not 4, but 3 walls? What it is that we really need in this room? And then what can suggest a room? What is a door? And slowly we went through many sketches, so many sketches. And then suddenly there was this idea that, okay, this is the play, but maybe there's something that happens before this play, because this is after an earthquake. And maybe something happens that introduces, or maybe puts this whole story in a perspective, in a different perspective. So it's not just this story. We suggest that something happened before, something extraordinary. So, it was a parallel thing to create something of an installation / art piece. And again, we went through so many things, suspended projection screens and insane ideas that obviously we couldn't make happen. But even then, we thought maybe that's not necessary. And we settled on a really subtle, beautiful light installation that preceded the whole show. And basically, that was the first view that you got. It was a light and sound show. But again, working out the technical sides of it, like how come that it's there in the beginning, and how does it go away, and how do we manage all these things? It's a lot of engineering and a lot of thinking, which I really love. So that's my third, engineering and coming up with ideas that are impossible, in fact, but the end, it's possible. And of course, the theme. It's an amazing theme.
So I'm curious about this combination of engineering and the beauty and the fragility of the space. Because I look at this set design, and it actually, I feel quite emotional, and I'm not sure, obviously that speaks to whatever's happening inside of me, but I also wonder, when you're working on the project, do you feel, you say you love the engineering part of it, do you get emotional about, or do you come from an emotional place when you are designing the space? Does that ever hit you in waves when you're working on it? Such
a beautiful question. Yes, and I think that's that's what most people think, that engineering can't be emotional or geometry can be emotional. But I think it's all about, how forms and how colors interact with each other, how different materials interact with each other. And if I put a screen in a very solid wall that gets all these beautiful lights, and then again, I could go into the interaction of set and lights, what is set without lights. But I think it becomes very emotional. I mean, when I'm looking at the yellow floor, it was so controversial in the process because nobody trusted that. It just seemed too strong, for the fragility of the story. It seemed, maybe for some people, it seemed just very vulgar. Like how come, it has a yellow floor, like what does that mean? But to be, when I found that yellow, it was basically joy, the ultimate joy, it's sunshine. It's how, a kid would draw light. It's just yellow,
it's like a crayon
rays of the sun, right? But also it's something that floats the space. So it's not real anymore. It's on the border of real and surreal, I would say. So what I really wanted to get is like this floating joy. It's not about sadness, it's not about losing someone. It happens after that, when you want to get over it and just kind of trying to open up to something new. So yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think I read in one of the reviews that was applauding, or more than applauding, was really, talking about how beautiful the set design was. And I think, did they mention the externalization of the characters, the way they interpreted it, their feelings? This is what they can't express gets expressed, around the room. And whether that was the intention or not, I think you could have that as the audience as well.
I think it's. I mean, I have to confess, I read a lot of psychology books. Books about how the mind works, but it's not conscious how I work it into it. It's just, I'm learning. And when I go to an exhibition, I learn about how colors work. I learn how, what emotions they give you when you're looking at those artworks, right? And I treat my set designs very much like artworks. They are not decorations. They are more like very very precisely worked out. We move from ideas, even a philosophy, that we find around the play or the device play, and then I'm just thinking about it as a very meticulous thought process, and also just choosing materials and choosing the particular colors, shapes. It all has its place. It's not just I wanted to put it there. There's a lot of gut feeling around set design. It's not all engineering, but I think it's all very thought out, and of course it's not only my work. I mean, it's really a teamwork. I enjoy it.
How did you win the? How did you rally for the yellow? And did you, in the controversial yellow, was it just you knew it needed to be that and were able to explain your theory, or was it you're just going to have to trust me on this, or a combination of all those things? When do you, did you feel that strongly about it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I think I felt very strongly about it, but of course, when you are in a meeting with all new people, and it can be intimidating, and you go back and forth because with Dan we spent so many hours just like looking on top of the model that I made, changing the floor. I had a gray one, I had a yellow one, and we were just looking at the gray one, and it was, it's a room. The yellow one, okay, I can make the ghost float, because she's the one who basically floats around or moves around the space, and the couple, the new couple, right, the husband and the girlfriend, are pretty much anchored on the sofa or not moving as much as the ghost. So basically I was trying to see if I can really float the entire space. And yes, it took some convincing, and also convincing myself, because, you know, you lose your confidence at some point. Is it really too strong? I mean, do I really tell them that, yes, that's what I need? And then what do I do when it's all painted? And, you know, I just walk into the space and I see that all that yellow. But ultimately, I think it was my technical director sitting next to me who said, no, it needs to be yellow. That's what makes the set. And it was an amazing thing, you know, because you know, sometimes you fight with technical directors, sometimes, you know, it's a beautiful flow, but that was just such a beautiful support, because even Dan was kind of, you know, like, yeah, do make it yellow. Like, is it too big of a gesture? You know, that really, I mean, now I feel, looking at this set in the background, that really that's what made it. That's what made this set. I remember when you designed, I did leave one show out of that you had designed for the IRC, Gogol's The Marriage. And remember we had a white set for that, and white walls, and then the structures, the furniture was actually painted onto the wall. And I remember how when that floor finally got painted, it changed the entire feel and the look of the space, and the in a very different example, but how it just transforms. I had never had as much of an appreciation of why floor detail in set design is so very important, because for the very reasons you're talking about right now. I wanted to ask you about your work we talked a little bit about how you're sort of exploring visual painting and visual design, and how has that become an extension of your work in theater? Well, I think, you know, just before this interview, we were talking about how this past year has made many people, I think, wonder about, you know, extensions of themselves, extensions of their work, because we were just shut down, right? Either in mid-sentence or, you know, right after a premiere. Doesn't matter, you know. Basically, we lost pretty much everything that we were doing. So, yeah, some things moved online. And, you know, when we shut down, I was actually teaching a course at Columbia, teaching set design and media. And I was telling you how well suited it was for this online or virtual platform, right? Because we were discovering actually new ways to produce, to show work, to showcase work, but still stay a group and still be hands-on. But basically, this. I mean, you know, to me, I'm not a producer, I'm not a director. So it was hard for me to see how, I didn't see any set design in the Zoom productions. So any particular lighting, some attempts, yes, but, you know, I mean, not much, right? So what do I do? And then suddenly it just came out, you know, we were talking about colors, about the yellow, and about the importance of just one featured color, or just how the colors interact. And suddenly I never painted, you know, I was always much more into drawings, and black lines, ink, pen, lead pencil, and you can do so much with it. You can suggest so many spaces and so many you know, geometric planes, without having to fill anything in. And I really like doing that. I've always been doing that as you know, as part of my set design. They inspired some set designs, you know, it was a back and forth. But suddenly I felt, this urge to discover or to engage with colors. And so I started painting, and I didn't even know what I was doing. First, I was just really doing very small format paintings. I would say maybe 9 by 12. And then suddenly, and I love that series. It just came like almost every day I would create, a painting. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I knew that came from my previous work. I could definitely see that. I knew that some of them were based on my set designs. I knew that some of them were, fantasies in a way that I would want to really enter that space, or they felt like sculptures, that I could really enter and just turn them around. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, it's my I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The designer nature that I wanted to go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So now I'm at 60 by 40, and I feel I will grow out of those. So it's either going back to set design very soon, or really, I just feel that, yeah, I'm missing the big things, the big gestures. So that's something that I really want to. I mean, painting, I think it now will always stay with me and always be kind of, there for me to experiment with it. But also, there's one other thing that is very important about it, that I think, theater designers should be able to really cross borders more often, as architects or architects are invited to do set designs, right? We see many collaborations like that. I'm happy to see that more and more set designers are invited to do installations. Emilian will be doing a beautiful installation for Lincoln Center this summer, and as Devlin, of course. And, it's just beautiful to see that you don't have to be confined to a theater space. Theater itself or drama goes beyond, and you could put it on other platforms.
So it was this desire to initially to just interface with more color that kind of led you to putting it down on the canvas, if I'm understanding you right. What medium are you, what are you using?
I'm using acrylic.
Acrylic.
Yes.
And are you in your apartment?
In my apartment, we have to make do. Yes. I mean, I carve out the space no matter what. Yes, we do crazy things, of course.
Yeah, I think, and so you started small, but then you had this desire to, as you say, make a bigger gesture about it, and you just kept building the canvases. And how many works have you done then during this time?
I think the small format things, many, so many, I can't even tell you. But the bigger ones, of course, it's limiting. I would love to show them, actually. I would love to make them into an installation, ultimately, or show it in a gallery setting. And of course, because I am a set designer, I already built a virtual space, a virtual gallery for them, so that I could see how they look. But yes, I mean, it was an urge, probably, maybe not only the colors, that was one thing, but also just seeing, my ideas about perspective, about geometry, about how space works that is not realistic, that, and also that's something that goes back to, the Zoom experience, that you don't necessarily need to have one perspective or one point of view. You can examine things from like many points of view, and that was exciting in the Zoom situation. But that's also exciting for me in painting, that I use many different perspectives, and maybe it's an illusionist thing that, oh, you found the way, you know how to look at it. it's not quite optical illusion or deception. It's just like showing you that there are many ways to look at forms. And ultimately, when I don't even know what I'm doing yet, but when I look at my paintings, they remind me not only of spaces, of rooms or twisted, perspectives, but also kind of shell-like structures, almost like engineered structures, though they are very, they are not organic in their forms. They are very crystalline, crystalline structures, right? But they also look like engineered shells.
Do you see any psychology in all of that, in the structures, or in the way that you see the structures?
I'm sure others would, but it's so hard for me to,
like Rorschach.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's I actually want to do that because I'm reading so many books on that, how perception works and how we can tune in our minds to perceive or change certain things. I'm not sure, I was trying to look at my pictures this way, but I think that it can only be done by someone else.
By an
outsider. And sometimes I ask my kids, and I was so happy one day, my little one came to me and she was just looking at the paintings all in a row. Like I put them out along one of the walls because I was looking at them to see, what's next or how they relate to each other. And she told me, I'm beginning to see them. So I'm beginning to see them. That was her. So that was good. I mean, I didn't ask, like, what do you see in them? My older one told me it's definitely spaces and they are very energetic and they are bursting with color and energy, and that you also want to be in those spaces. But the little one just told me, yes, I started to see them. So that was good,
Yeah, to really, I guess, understand them in her own way.
Exactly. It's different. Yeah, because kids have very good eyes and minds, and they speak their minds.
Yeah.
So if she started seeing them, or she began to see them.
Is there something specific about that you can point to as an experience in painting, in doing this work, that is a different space in your mind or your heart than what you feel when you're creating for theater? Or are they, would you say they're similarly, similar experiences?
Again, a very good question. When I work in theater, it's so many inputs, right? I mean, we always work in a team, though we usually start with the director, right? So it's a very intimate team. But then, we expand, and then I get many, many feedbacks. And of course, the set design evolves, right? Through those feedbacks and through those reflections or dialogues, right? And here I'm left alone, basically. It's very meditative, but also there are many, many voices in my head. I create my team, basically. So,
does your team talk back to you?
Absolutely. They critique, they talk.
You have to justify the yellow and
absolutely. So it's a huge thing because sometimes I come up with sketches, and then but not very. I don't know all the details before I really start on a big canvas. But I have a sketch, more or less. I know what I need to do or want to do. But again, when I start painting and it's a bigger scale, you always revive, and then there is this heading in your. Sometimes I actually talk to real people in my head, and not only made up voices. But I feel that there is something that is very similar to theater, that it's a very focused work. I thought, painting was just, we just paint. But to me, it became really not only meditative, but a very focused work that brought something back from what was taken away, right? Mm-hmm. From creating all these spaces, from trying to see, what works, what planes work, what, points of view works, how to construct something, because I really think about those paintings as structures. So that is very similar to what I would be doing in theater. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Did you keep a practice that was pretty structured? Did you, go into or begin painting at the same time every day? Did you set up was that the way you went about it?
Yes, I really tried. I was really working from the morning on as long as I could. So yes, it was almost like it was work. It was real work.
Your team was there. You were there with your team. Absolutely. And you reported.
I had to be there, for the shops to be able to build something.
Right. I mean, this show came out of a very similar, a need to make something.
I think anything that you are serious about, it just needs your attention, and mm-hmm. you can just go there and just say, okay, I'll be back sometime soon. Yeah. It's like watering the flowers. You can just leave them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
right.
tending to, to another person. Because those are like creatures. I mean, the set designs are my creatures, and some are more fragile, some are more aggressive, or this or that, depending on the play, or on the vibes, or on what was being asked. So, mm-hmm. yeah.
When you get to the end of a show, I know this is always hard for me, so I can't even imagine how it is for you, but when a set has to be deconstructed, when it literally has to be taken apart and taken out, or even worse, to see it, which happens, is that hard for you?
Oh, yes, especially that it happens usually, with smaller productions, it happens so fast, mm-hmm. I can't even believe, it's we just put it on stage and then it has to mm-hmm. go. So that's why, we are talking about online and, different platforms and streaming. And I think, maybe going forward, because it's so ephemeral, right? I mean, we create a piece of theater that can be used for 3 weeks, for months, for 2 months. That's it. And then maybe salvaging something, mm-hmm. not only just, shots or stills that can be put as a background, right? But, something more. Now that, all this Zoom and online platforms happen, maybe I was thinking about it a lot, that, salvaging it or showing it in a different medium, online, social media, in some form, I think it will be very beneficial. Mm-hmm. And maybe even inevitable, that you will be doing the production and you'll be filming it, you'll be documenting it more, because now we know that anything can be interrupted at mm-hmm. any point, right? So I think it will be built into our consciousness that, we have to cherish, we have to treasure this, because, it's not granted. Nothing is granted, right? Mm-hmm. So, and also, in the theater, like how many people can see the show, especially if it's, it's in another town, it's in Philadelphia. I'm not in Philadelphia. It's in New York. You're not in New York. Mm-hmm. Well, we can bridge that. We can travel. But if we can't, I really love to see, what you're working on. And maybe it's a different phase, of that theater, of the production that is produced parallel, to what's going on stage in that closed room, and maybe give it, a different platform.
Just as an introduction to a company, to a designer, to a style, to a way of, being, I think this idea of capturing it in ways that I know we never, with a small company with not a large budget to get, you've got one camera at the very back of the booth and you're capturing something. But as we were talking about before the show, any phone can capture things. And if you have 3 good eyes, and not to minimize what goes into it, but the possibilities arise to make sure that these things are captured. That is one of the hardest and saddest things about doing a show is yes, you have the stills, but do you have any real record of that? So
and also just we're thinking if it's just one camera, that's put at the back of the house, or is it a new way, because we just saw that there's so many ways to to cater to the online community, so to say, and you can reach so many people. So what do you do to really make it lively and worth looking at?
Yeah, and remember, I mean, that's how we initially met. Well, through Pig Iron's work, but also there's a shared interest in this in the much of the work that we were doing, the work of Kafka of UNESCO and we have a very ironically very large audience of people who watch this show every week, but who also know about the IRC because of the work, because it's work they're familiar with, but also to be able, they may never find their way into Studio 3 over at the Walnut Street Theater, but to be able to see something online that this is what a company in Philadelphia is doing, is extraordinarily exciting on many different levels. So I want to get a question in here, Anna. Do you see ways to market and promote? I love the online gallery and sketchbooks you've created. Is the question, do you see a way to market or promote that just as you would a physical gallery show?
Well, I'm at the very beginning, and you can see that, I couldn't resist. I always create these 3D spaces. So I couldn't see why I couldn't create a space for my creations, my paintings. So yes, I'm thinking that, again, I'm exploring it through social media, definitely. I mean, ultimately, to me, the best would be to have physical and virtual together, because I don't think anything can replace, the real physical experience and just, seeing those colors or, even texture in person in a physical room. But yes, I'm looking into ways to really do that. And also, while we are at that, I have another project that I was working on through the pandemic, and that's outside dining structures in New York City. And again, that's something that I really want to market through internet or different platforms. But also I'm thinking about a book, a real object, a bespoke object. Mm-hmm. But that would definitely have an extension to the internet and social media.
Did you design any of these spaces, outdoor dining spaces in New York, or did you just become fascinated with them as they started to pop up in the city?
There's so many people asked, my friend asked, oh, are you involved in designing those structures? But, at the beginning, if you would see the images that I was taking, it was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. They started really popping up, after, the beginning of the winter, right? Mm-hmm. It was down in March, right? So after that, through the summer, it was okay, nice weather, but really, they started popping up right before Christmas, and they were heartbreaking, especially in my neighborhood, East Village, and mostly, some of them really looked like refugee camps, literally. So tents, makeshift spaces, really, because, the restaurants didn't have money to do anything about it. They were just going to survive at any cost. So it's only now that I see that, posh, beautiful, well-designed things are popping up. I'm not involved, though. When I started photographing them, I was thinking, these are really stages And I saw some of the better constructed ones. I'm just missing the show. And,
well, if you build it, hopefully they will come.
I mean, I saw some restaurants where literally, and again, the heaters through the winter. Some of them didn't have heaters. Some of them had heaters, and I tried one where they were heaters, but still, they were not enough to keep you warm. But it was an amazing effort, to keep people together and to really try to make them socialize, even though it was impossible. And it was, to me, it was almost like a theater event. Yes, I mean, this brings people together. There is nourishment, right? There's food. There is shelter, right? But basically the diners are the actors. They're put on stage there, and all the passersby were looking at them.
So you became the actor that's complaining about there's no heat in the dress, fairly complaining about there's no heat in the dressing room. I can't work this way. Exactly.
So, it was amazing to see, how also the differences in how different restaurants or different neighborhoods could do. Some with tents, some with more elaborate structures, some with glass houses, those were amazing. And so I just started it became fascinated totally with this new visual layer that I've never seen here or anywhere else, in such numbers. I mean, literally, half a block was taken by these sheds. And slowly, decor started to appear, like little lamps, practicals, right?
Different textures and materials I've noticed. It reminded me of the set you had designed for us for the George Bernard Shaw play, MISALLIANCE, where you designed this extraordinary greenhouse, and we had the plastic that we had to blow. Bob and I took the blow dryer and we had to get it to shrink up and to create glass, basically, because glass would be too heavy. I've seen so many interesting window treatments and all of that. How do you, and it's, some of it's very, I'm sure quite expensive, but very magical. And as you say, I'm sure the journey, as you were photographing it, you said heartbreaking, initially as you were seeing, but what a extraordinary, just challenge and just challenge and just we're going to make this work.
Yeah, a will to survive, absolutely. And you asked me about if it's sad or heartbreaking to see your sets being taken apart. Of course it is. And now I'm just thinking about how permanent these will be,
Yeah.
New Yorkers grow really fond of things and novelties and innovations. And I think, I interviewed many, many people actually, just for this project. And all of them, I think most of them said that they are really fascinated, by these outside diners or outdoor diners, and they really want to see them become permanent.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to eat outside first time, and it really was. You're right. I didn't think of it that way at the time, but you're entering a set, and you are in this space where I didn't notice it at the time, but now that I think about it, it did feel quite theatrical. And when you go inside a restaurant, you realize that it's all theater anyway, but somehow having that on the outside as an extension and having it be in the midst of other life that is, motorbikes and scooters and electric scooters and all kinds of things, happening, it really, really makes it a floating stage.
Yes, that's why I became fascinated, because suddenly it was all exposed. Everything was exposed, like how well the restaurant was doing, what they served, who were the clientele, right? What the core was. So really, it was a show put out there on the streets. Yeah. So I have hundreds and hundreds of images. I also have this, the interview part. I also did some research, and I really, I came up with a really fun form for this book. It's not just a book, of course, it's more like a theater model. And you open it up, of course. So I'm really hoping that, it will happen. But till then, I'm thinking what's the best way to put it out there on the internet in a way that I can, preserve the integrity of the entire, material, but also present it in a fun, new way. So that's a challenge for me. I have the materials.
Yeah. Let me get back to, it would be interesting to hear of the interaction of the artists. This is a question from Tara. Interaction of the artists in a medium where one of the arts is prominent. I suggest looking at opera. It would be interesting to hear the interaction. Tara, if you can, put in the chat, lead me a little bit more on your question. It would be interesting to hear of the interaction of artists in a meeting where one of the arts is prominent. I suggest looking at opera, because I want to answer your question, but I want to make sure I'm understanding it as well. Anna, getting back to a question about you and your space. I'm curious about, is your living space or spaces where you are most comfortable, are they fairly, are they sparsely decorated?
Yeah, just like the set that's behind you.
Yes.
I actually got the sofa from.
Don't we always, right?
Believe it or not. Yeah, I really like, it just puts me at ease, if there are not many things around me, I can control. But of course, with 2 kids, it can't happen. But what I try, and my kids actually appreciated that, we have some bright colors, some beautiful objects, but really just the necessary things. And of course, we have our art tools. My husband also makes jewelry, so sometimes space is transforming into shops.
Sure.
We carve out little corners where we can work. It's not only the laptop. And but yes, I really enjoy spaces that are Japanese minimalism, and functionality, basically. Everything that's around me has to have its purpose, its place, ideally.
Sure.
But I'm not obsessive. If something happens, that's a beautiful thing. I look at it and then put it away.
But that must make it easy. Well, easy is not a good word, but more efficient when you're trying to edit out, say, for a set design, to be able to ask that question: is this necessary and important? Is such a great skill to have when, to just get rid of, as you were saying before, you tested on the set that I'm in front of some ideas with screens and things hanging and things coming in. And then you sort of step back and go, okay, like, if you can ask the question, what purpose is that really? I think I need to take that through my entire house right now. Not that, I don't live in a cluttered house, but I certainly am looking at things and going, what purpose is that serving? And I think when you live in a small, what's that?
I'll come and design it for you.
Because when you're in a small space, right, it's just like, this thing is in my way and I'm not sure what it's doing right now. I think that ability to sort of ask that question about art or life or you name it.
Yeah, I think, I just enjoy those spaces, but also it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy Baroque. Or,
sure.
It's fully curated and beautiful, just to look at the abundance. That is fully curated. It has a purpose, it just, it's beautiful carved. There is craftsmanship, I really enjoy that. The many textures, the textiles, right? That's also something that I really want to look at. But this is not something that I would want to create necessarily. So my world is more like, the Japanese time's journey through a room, but it really doesn't mean that I can't venture into, somewhere else, somewhere that is more, crazy or disorganized or messy. It's just something where I find really full balance and, something that that actually worked really well with the story, with the ghost story, that really just floats and easy and light and airy.
Do you find that this idea of, well, because I know certainly for working for the IRC with a very small budget and these tiny, tiny spaces that we were in, over at the Walnut Studio 5, which, I really enjoy working out of, but they do present challenges for a designer and not the least of which is financial. But do you sort of subscribe, or have you found it to be true that like the more constraint you put on something, the more tools, other tools at your disposal you have to use? Just like, in other words, is constraint good for you as a designer?
Sometimes good.
Sometimes, right? Sometimes not so much. Not if you want me to do big things with no money, right?
I started out on really big stages, back in Hungary, of course, national theaters and big stages, the opera. And, those have their own limitations, not in space and not in budget, but other limitation is basically what you can do with, with the actors, or what's allowed, what's not allowed, how the shops work. It's more like an industry, right? So, so I would say there is no work without limitations or without challenges. And I really enjoy working in intimate spaces. I think it's like for composers writing a chamber music or writing a full orchestral piece, right? Both can be beautiful. And, again, when we are getting rid of stuff just to really, or, revealing things, pulling the veils, right, for this space to really reveal itself to us. I enjoy that. And I enjoy all the constraint that poses. But, also when, for example, creating Pay Up, right, that was a mega production, with 8 separate rooms, and then, everything pre-recorded and everything painted white, which is, another constraint. I mean, I created it for myself and for the actors. But, I enjoy both ends, I would say. And I learned a lot from working in small spaces, and I really came to like them.
I'm looking up at the clock and saying we don't have much time left, but it's hard to have the conversation about small spaces and not talk about, or at least give a nod to your design of Franz Kafka's The Castle, which was, Kay's journey, David Stanger playing Kay, his journey to the castle, which, Kafka's just
beautiful, yeah.
Beautiful and large and yet really, being able to just get down to the doors of his psyche and the ways through those doors that led him on his journey was such an accomplishment in such a small space that was over at the Adrian, which is so I think of that fondly. I think of that show fondly. And
I love collaborating on all those shows. I venture into things that I wouldn't have ventured otherwise, right? And I really love just the perspective of doors opening and seeing something behind them, something that is very surreal, right? But also at the same time. And we also explored a lot of colors, right? Because that's how we could create the small spaces or different space suddenly next to another space where we should have had a lot of space. But instead created it with colors, right? So remember.
Yeah. In fact, you know what I'm going to do, Anna, just really quickly here. Everybody bear with me. I'm just going to pop up that, I want to pop up that space real quick. I didn't use this photo behind me because it has characters in it. And I wanted to focus on yours, but that yellow is up again, right? I mean, and you had yeah, just a different.
Yeah, that was a way to basically create or suggest that those are different spaces, and they go on and on and on and on, and they basically just never stop.
They lead to different places, and the doors are always so intriguing, right? You put a door somewhere, or a series of 3 doors, and you're back to The Price is Right, or whichever the show where you select a boyfriend behind door number 3. Any one of those things.
I'm very grateful for all those productions because, really, I mean, they always give you something new to explore and build.
Yeah. Steve saying, this is so interesting. Anna's work is seen. Her website is wonderful. I do remember Paradise Park, and please have on more set designers. So you're carrying the flag for, I suddenly feel, I said in the beginning of the show, but I really do feel like there was this longest period where I just couldn't even talk about theater.
I know. And I really missed set designers and lighting designers from all these Zoom productions. So yeah, I have the same thing. I mean, I miss my colleagues, not only seeing theater, because I could see some productions. It still went on, but not much set.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your many different projects with us today. And I really look forward to seeing where the book goes and what lies ahead in terms of the connections and the new discoveries that can be made, particularly for a small theater company. I'm very excited to be inspired by some of our conversation today about the things that might be able to happen in the future.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And yes, best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
Take care.
Bye.
And I hope that we'll see you all next week when Michael Toner is going to be coming back to Into the Absurd. Michael, we had on earlier in the year, and he is the consummate Beckett actor. And he and I share this love of the playwright. And oh gosh, I have his book here that we share a love of a book called The Beckett Actor. And we're going to be discussing his one-man shows in Beckett that he's done, and just what makes Samuel Beckett's work so extraordinarily challenging and rewarding to perform. So I hope you'll join us. That's next Saturday at 5 p.m. And in the week to come, happy Mother's Day to everyone who considers themselves a caregiver out there in the world. Have a great week and be well.